this session today we are going to begin with a new chapter, which is real numbers. See, as soon as we hear this word real numbers, what we are going to remember? We need to remember about natural numbers, integers, rational numbers. Then only this all together they are comprised as real numbers, right? That is what we are going to study about in our today's class. That is, we are going to study about real numbers. So before beginning with the study of these real numbers, let us first know about natural numbers. Let us know about integers and then rational numbers, and then we shall begin our study with these real numbers. So now first we will begin with the set n of natural numbers. The set n of natural numbers. See, we all know that natural numbers is denoted by capital letter N, right? Then what are the natural numbers? The numbers, that is 1, 2, 3, so on. The positive numbers where we denote it by N. N is equals to 1, 2, 3, so on. This is called as what? This is called as the set of natural numbers. Then let us see few of the properties. Let us know what is the composition of natural numbers. If A and B be any two natural numbers, okay, what we are going to consider? If A and B are any two natural numbers, then of course what we are going to find? We find that A plus B, that is the sum, is also a natural number, right? What we are going to say? A plus B, which is the sum, that is also going to be a natural number, and it is called as is a natural number. And how we are going to say this? And is sum of A and B. The same way it is the sum of A and B. Then what about the multiplication? A natural number which we say is denoted by A into B. This is the sum. Then the natural number what it is? The multiplication, that is the product A into B. What we call it? It is the multiplication, right? Is called what? Is called a product of A and B. What it is? It is the product of A and B. Now we are going to study the basic properties of two compositions in natural numbers. That is basic properties of two composition in N. N is nothing but what? N is the set of natural numbers. Basic properties in the sense, what are the properties of this natural number? We know about the commutative property, associative property, distributive property over addition, multiplicative identity. These are all the identities these are the basic properties of natural number, right? That is what we are going to study now. First one is basic property, that is A plus B will be equal to B plus A for all AB belongs to natural number. Which property is this? It is the commutative property, or we can say it as commutativity. Commutative property or commutativity. Next, we are going to study about which property? Associative property. What is the associative property? A plus B plus C will be equal to what? A plus B plus C for all A, B, C belongs to N. This is called as what? This is called as associativity. Okay. After that, what all properties we have? We have this is for addition. The same way we shall simultaneously deal with both addition and multiplication. Okay. This is for commutative property of addition. Then what about the multiplication? A into B will be equal to B into A. This is for addition and this is for multiplication. Then next one, same for associative property. A plus B plus C will be equal to what? A plus B plus C for all A, B, C belongs to N. This is which property? This is associativity or nothing but associative property. This is of addition. Then what about multiplication? A into B into C will be equal to A into B into C. But most of the time, generally, we are not going to write like this. We just repeat it, remove the brackets and just write A into B into C. This is what about the associative property of addition and multiplication. Then next, what about the cancellation loss? We have the cancellation loss, right? Cancellation loss. We have it for both for addition as well as multiplication. That is, A plus C will be equal to what? It will be equal to B plus C, or we can say that if A plus C is equals to B plus C, this implies what? This implies A is equals to B. This is cancellation law of addition. The same way, what about multiplication? It says if A into C is equals to B into C, it implies A is equals to B. This is a cancellation law of multiplication. We learned cancellation law of addition and multiplication. What about the distributive of addition with respect to multiplication? Distributive of addition. Distributive of addition over multiplication. This concept is nothing new for us. We are just what we are doing, recalling whatever we have learned earlier. This is a very basic topic which I am discussing now. Distributive of addition with respect to multiplication or multiplication. What we are going to find? We are going to find A into B plus C will be equal to what? A into B plus C will be equal to A into B plus A into C. What about the multiplicative identity? If A is any number, next multiplicative identity. If A is any number, then A into 1 will be equal to A for all A belongs to this set of natural number. Hence 1 is called as what? 1 is called as multiplicative identity. These are some of the basic properties of natural numbers. The same way we find these all properties for integers as well as rational numbers. We don't need to again discuss about those properties for integers and rational numbers. The same whatever we study for these natural numbers are going to be applied for integers as well as rational numbers. A few more properties are left off. We'll see now. That is an ordered structure of the set n of natural numbers. How we are going to find the ordered structures? Let us see that. Okay. ordered structure of the set of natural numbers. It is order structure of the set n of natural numbers Here we are discussing about the relation greater than. What we are talking about? We are talking about the relation greater than. The relation greater than. How it is related? Let us know that given any two, just consider any two different natural numbers a and b. What we are going to do? Consider two different natural numbers. Consider two different natural numbers a and b. How they are different from each other? Two different natural numbers a and b. We will be having what? We have either, see what we have said? We have said two different natural numbers. Two different natural numbers in the sense what? Either a will be greater than b or b will be greater than a. We have either a greater than b or what we will be having? We will be having b greater than a. We have either a greater than b or b greater than a. Instead of the relation greater than, we also consider the, see now instead of this relation, instead of the relation greater than, we can use what? We can use smaller than. This also relation, this is also the relation, right? Instead of always using greater than, we can use smaller than, such that what we have, let us consider. We have said that a is greater than b, right? We have used this symbol, a is greater than b. This implies what? By using this smaller than sign, what we can say? Instead we can say that b is less than a. This means, this both means one and the same. That is, a is greater than b or b is smaller than a. It both means one and the same. That is, instead of using the relation greater than, we can use this relation smaller than also. How? Such that a is greater than b. That is going to imply what? That is going to imply that b is less than a. This means both one and the same. The relation greater than between these two different natural numbers, it is going to denote what is known as the order relation. That is known as order relation. The relation, it is greater than, right? Greater than. For two different natural numbers we have considered. For two different natural number is what? Is ordered relation. What it is? We are studying about the ordered structure, right? Order relation in the set of order relation in the set of natural numbers. In the set of what? In the set of natural numbers. So now what is going to happen? And the presence of this relation in n is referred as n having a ordered structure, and the presence of this relation and the presence of this relation in n is nothing but the natural number, in n is known as what? Is known as ordered structure. That is, the presence of this greater than relation in this natural number is known as what? Is known as ordered structure. The same it is going to happen for the set of integers also, and even for the rational numbers. What it is? Whatever the basic properties we have studied for these natural numbers and also these ordered structure for the natural numbers is again going to repeat the same for what? For these integers and rational numbers. Again now, as we begin with the study of real numbers, we are going to deal with the same properties. That is, if a and b be any two real numbers, then their sum. That is, a plus b is the sum of real numbers, a into b is the product of real numbers. Right, there we had considered a and b as natural numbers. Now here we are going to consider a and b as what? We are going to consider it as real numbers. Again we are going to denote the same properties for real numbers, that is commutativity property or commutative law, associative law, cancellation laws, multiplicative laws. Yes, there exists of additive identity and also the additive inverse. Now we are going to study about multiplication composition of real numbers, or let us first note or study about the real numbers. All the properties are same. We are not going to deal with the same properties again for real numbers. That will be given in your notes. We are going to continue with the further explanations. That is, I am going to continue with the ordered structure of R. Ordered structure of R. See, before learning about the ordered structure of R, what we have studied? We also studied the ordered structure of N. Before studying the ordered structure of N, we studied those properties, right? The same way here, before the ordered structure of R, we have the basic properties of R, which we all are very much familiar. That is commutative, associative, additive identity, additive inverse or multiplicative inverse. Whatever these, we all know these properties. So we will go to the next topic, that is ordered structure of R. How we are going to define the ordered structure of R? It is the same, that is again for the greater than relation given to any different real numbers. That is, we are going to prove for greater than relation. That is what same happened in the set of natural numbers. Consider two different numbers a and b. Consider two different, this time it is going to be what? Different real numbers. Real numbers a and b. Then what is going to happen? Then either a is greater than b or b is greater than a, or this should happen, right? consider any two real numbers, either one should be greater than the other or the one should be the smaller than the other. A and B, this greater relation has the following property. What happens? This greater relation has the following property. Which property we have? Following property. Very simple it is. If A is greater than B, that is A is greater than B and B is greater than C. See, in some books, if you go on referring, instead of writing this and, we are going to get this sign. This sign is nothing but and. How we are going to read? We are going to read it as and. A is greater than B and B is greater than C implies what? Implies A is greater than C. That is the relation greater than. It is called as what? Transitivity. Transitivity. This word is not new to us because we have already studied this in set theory. So this is what the ordered structure of R. What we studied of these real numbers, that we are going to consider two different real numbers. So what is going to happen? A is greater than B or B is greater than A. Then the relation, this greater relation, what it has? A is greater than B and B is greater than C. It simply means that A is greater than C. That is called the transitivity. Let us continue with closed, open, semi-closed and semi-open intervals. That is closed, open, semi-closed and semi-open intervals. Among that, let us first start with closed intervals. Closed intervals. Here what we are going to do is consider two different real numbers. Consider two, what kind of real numbers? Different real numbers. Different real numbers A and B. How it should be? A and B such that A should be less than B. Then the set X such that X is greater than or equal to A and less than or equal to B. How it is? The set X greater than or equal to A and less than or equal to B. This is called as what? This is called as closed interval. This is called as closed interval. And how we are going to denote it? And is denoted by this square bracket A comma B. Now let us move to the next one, which is open intervals. Open intervals. The same thing again, we need to consider two different real numbers. How those two different real numbers should be? Again, it should be less. A should be less than B. Consider two different real numbers. Different real numbers A and B. How it should be? Such that A is less than B. The set, how it should be? The set x such that here x should be strictly greater than a and strictly less than b. Then we call it as open interval. How we are going to write open interval? It is written as this open interval a comma b and is denoted by this open interval a comma b. Then what about semi-closed interval? Semi-closed interval. When we say that it is a semi-closed interval, when we have a comma b in such a way that where the set x will be in such a way that x will be strictly greater than a but it will be less than or equal to b. This is called as what? It is called as semi-closed interval. Then what about semi-open interval? Semi-open interval. When we are going to say it is a semi-open interval, when we have AB in such a way that the set x, how this set x should be? X should be greater than or equal to A but strictly less than B. Then we say that it is semi-open interval. We studied 4 types of different intervals. What is that? Closed interval, where x, the set x will be, how it will be? X such that x will be greater than or equal to A and less than or equal to B. This is closed interval. What about the open interval? X will be strictly greater than A and strictly less than B. We are going to denote it in this way, open interval A comma B. What about the semi-closed interval? Here x will be strictly greater than A but less than or equal to B. And what about semi-open intervals? It is semi-open where x is greater than or equal to A and less than B. Now we are going to study about the bounded set bounded above and set bounded below. After that we are going to study supremum and infimum of the sets. What we are going to study now? Set bounded above, set bounded below. Supremum is nothing but the least upper bound. What is supremum? Least upper bound is also called as supremum. Greatest lower bound is called as infimum. Let us now define it. That is, we are going to now study about set bounded above, set bounded below, least upper bound, which is also called as supremum, and we are going to study about greatest lower bound, which is also called as infimum. Let us define all these one by one. Let us first start with what? Let us first start with set bounded above. Set bounded above. How we are going to define this set bounded above? We are going to consider a set S of real numbers. Then we say the set is bounded above. When we say when there exists a number B, the condition is that the number may belong to S or may not belong to S. It is not necessary that the element B should be a member of S. Then we say that B is the upper bound of S. We are going to define it. It is defined by SB, a subset of real numbers. Let yes be a subset of real numbers. We say that S is bounded above. We say that S is bounded above when if there exists a number B, if there exists a number B not necessarily a member of S. How we are going to see? We say B not necessarily member of S such that X belongs to S implies what? X is less than or equal to B. Then we say that B is the upper bound of S for all X belongs to S. Then what we are going to say? We say that the number B is called an upper bound of S. The number B is called upper bound of S. Then suppose if we do not have any number B, what is going to happen? We say that S is not bounded, or we say S is unbounded above. That is how we are going to say it. Suppose if there exists no real number B, if there exists no real number B satisfying equation 1, then what we say? Then we say that then S is not bounded, or we say that S is unbounded. What we say? S is not bounded, or we say that S is unbounded. Thus a set is unbounded above. When we say thus a set is unbounded above, when we say the set is unbounded above, there exists a member like S is unbounded above. S is not bounded or unbounded above if however large a real number, if however large a real number. See how that real number should be? A real number, however large a real number B may be chosen. A real number B may be chosen. There exists what? Maybe however large, large may be chosen. What we are going to get? There exists one X belongs to S, however large chosen. There exists one X belongs to S such that how it should be? This X will be greater than B. Then we say that it is unbounded. How we are going to define this set bounded above? we are first going to consider a subset S of real numbers. Then we say that set S is bounded if there is a number B. How that number should be? It should not be necessarily a member of S, such that X belongs to S. If this implies X is less than or equal to B for all X belongs to S. Then what B is called? B is called the upper bound of S. What if there is no real number B at all, which is going to satisfy equation 1? Then we say that S is not bounded, or we say S is unbounded. Thus, a set is unbounded above if whatever large number B might be, if there exists one member X in S such that it is bigger than B, then we say that S is unbounded. The same way now, let us define set bounded below. What we shall define? Now we shall define set bounded below. How we are going to define this set bounded below? Again, let S be the subset of real numbers. Let S be the subset of real numbers. Then what we are going to say? We say that S is bounded below. What we say? We say that S is bounded below. S is bounded below when if there exists a number A, if there exists a number A such that X belongs to S. This implies what? This implies, see, we had written here X is less than or equal to B, no? The same way for set bounded below, we are going to write X, it is greater than or equal to A for all X belongs to S. Consider this as equation 2. Then what we say? We say that A is the lower bound of S. Then what we are going to say? The number B, right? Here the number A is called what? The number A is called lower bound of S. What if we do not have any lower bound? The same way, if there exists no real number A satisfying equation 2, then S is said to be again not bounded above. Here not bounded above, here we say it is not bounded below. If, write on the same thing, if there exists no real number A satisfying which equation? Satisfying equation 2, then we say that S is not bounded below. Not bounded below. Then what is going to happen? Not bounded below in the sense a set is unbounded below, thus the set is unbounded below if however small it is for the, here we had said however large, right? Here however small a real number A may be, a real number A may be chosen, there exists X belongs to S there exists x belongs to S, how it should be? Such that it is going to be less than A, such that x is less than A. This is how we are going to define set bounded below. What actually it is set bounded below? We let there S be a subset of real numbers. Then when we say it is bounded below, when there exists a number A, it is not necessary that it should belong to the member of S only. There exists a number A in such a way that x it is greater than or equal to A. Then we say this A as the lower bound of S. If there is no number A at all, then we say S is not bounded below. It means there A, however small it might be, still there exists one number which is less than A. Then we say that S is not bounded below. So I hope you have followed about set bounded above and set bounded below. Now let us study least upper bound and greatest lower bound. We finished set bounded above and set bounded below. Now let us study about least upper bound, which is also called as supremum. We are going to study about what? Least upper bound. Least upper bound, or we also called as what? We call it as supremum. So how we are going to define this now? If the set of all upper bound of a set S, if the set of all upper bound of set S, we are talking about the set S, right? Of the set S of real number has a smallest number, of real number has a smallest number. Let us consider K, smallest number K. Let us say means we have said that the smallest number among all these upper bounds is K. Then what we say that? Then K is said to be the least upper bound. Then K is said to be the least upper bound, or what we say, or supremum, and is abbreviated as what? And is abbreviated as least upper bound, that is LUB, or it is said as supremum of S. What is actually the least upper bound or supremum? Among all the upper bounds, there is one smallest number. Among all those upper bounds, there exists one smaller number which is also a upper bound. Let us say it as K. Then what is going to happen? K is the least upper bound of S or supremum of S. And how we are going to write it, or how we have abbreviated it? As least upper bound or supremum of S. Now let us study about what? Greatest lower bound. What? Greatest lower bound. Greatest lower bound, or we also call it as infimum. What we call it? Greatest lower bound is also called as infimum. See how we have defined? if the set of all upper bounds of the set, yes, we have written, no? The same way here we are going to write the set of all, if the set of all lower bound of set S of real numbers has a greatest number. We have written here has a smallest number, no? The same way here we are going to write has a greatest number, any number, let us consider that as L. Say, then what we are going to do? Then L is said to be what? Then L is said to be the greatest lower bound, or we say it as infimum and how we are going to abbreviate it? And is abbreviated as greatest lower bound is written as greatest lower bound, that is GLB, or we write it as infimum of S. What we defined? In all the set of, there will be many lower bounds, right? In that all the set of lower bounds, the greatest number of that lower bounds, let us say that L, then we say that L is the greatest lower bound, or we say that it is the infimum of S. So what we studied? We studied about closed set bounded above, set bounded below, least upper bound, and we studied about the greatest lower bound, which is also called as infimum. Let us look over one of the theorem. What is the theorem given? The theorem is that what they have given, supremum. How we are going to call supremum? Another name of supremum is least upper bound, right? Supremum of a non-empty set S, of a non-empty set S of real numbers, whenever it exists is unique. What we are supposed to prove? Supremum, whenever it exists, it is unique. There cannot be two supremums. There cannot be two least upper bounds. We need to prove that. If possible, what we are going to consider? The proof. If possible, let us consider two supremum, K1 and K2 be two supremum of S, or two suprema of S. How we can say? Because S1 and S2, what is going to happen? Both S1 and S2, they are the suprema of S, right? Since S1 and S2 are suprema of S. How we are going to further? What we have considered? If possible, we have considered K1 and K2 be two suprema of S. Why? Because S1 and S2, they are both suprema of S. Hence, by definition, what is going to happen? Hence, by definition, both will be what? Hence, by definition, both of them are upper bounds of S. Hence, by definition, both of them are upper bounds of S. If both are the upper bounds of S, then what we are going to consider? Let K1 be the suprema and K2 be the upper bound. Let me consider that. Applying the definition. Now, what we are going to do? K is the supremum and now K1 is the supremum and K2 is the what? Let us consider it as upper bound. Okay, K2 is an upper bound. Then what is going to happen? K2, that will be what? It will be, this implies what? It implies that K1 is less than or equal to K2. Let us consider this as equation 1. What we have considered actually? We have considered K1 is the supremum and K2 is an upper bound. Then what it should be? K1 should be less than or equal to K2. Again what we are going to consider? Again K2 is supremum and K1 is an upper bound. Then what is going to happen? If so, it is going to be like K2 is less than or equal to, this implies K2 is less than or equal to K1. Consider this as equation 2. Therefore, from 1 and 2 what happened? Therefore, from 1 and 2 we get that K1 is equals to K2. We had considered that it has two suprema, but at the end what we concluded? We concluded that K1 is equals to K2. Hence, the set S has what? The set S has unique supremum. Hence, the set S has unique supremum. See, we were supposed to prove that the supremum, that is least upper bound of any set, will be unique. There will not be more than one supremum. To prove that, what we considered if possible, we considered it has two supremum. Then by definition what we done? We considered K1 as supremum and K2 as upper bound. Then what we did? We got K1 is less than or equal to K2. Again what we did? K2 as supremum and K1 is an upper bound. Then we got K2 is less than or equal to K1. From 1 and 2 what we got? We got that K1 is equals to K2. That is, there will be only one supremum. That will be, the supremum will be unique. This is theorem 1. The same way I have another theorem which I am going to prove it now itself. Just we'll see what will be the difference in that. Infimum, like this supremum, the theorem is of infimum. What it is? Infimum, or we also called it as what? Greatest lower bound of a non-empty set S, of a non-empty set S has what? Of a non-empty set S of real numbers whenever it exists is what? Is unique. The same way as we have proved for supremum, we need to prove it for infimum. How we are going to prove? Let again, if possible, K1 and K2 be two infimum of set S. Why? Since both S1 and S2 are infimum of S, since both S1 and S2 are infimum of S, hence by the definition what we have? Hence by the definition, both of them are what? Both of them are infimum of S. Now what we are going to consider? Let K1 be the infimum and let K1 be the infimum and K2 be the lower bound. Then what we are going to get? If K1 is the infimum and K2 is the lower bound, then we get that K1 is greater than or equal to K2. Consider this as equation 1. The same way, let K2 be the infimum and K1 be the lower bound. K1 be the lower bound. Then this implies what? This implies that K2 is greater than or equal to K1. This is equation 2. Now what we are going to get from equation 1 and 2? From equation 1 and 2, K1 will be equal to K2. Hence what we proved? Hence the set S has unique infimum. Hence the set S has unique infimum. So we proved these two theorems of the set having unique supremum and the set S having unique infimum. So students, in this session we have studied about natural numbers, its properties, again about integers, rational numbers and real numbers. Apart from that, we have studied closed interval, open interval and semi-closed and semi-open intervals. Soon after that we studied about the set bounded above, set bounded below, least upper bound which is also called as supremum and greatest lower bound which is also called as infimum. And then we have proved these two theorems. I hope you have followed whatever is being taught in this class. The next part will be continued in the next session. Thank you.